3 months had passed since Kira and Damon declared war on Viktor Kozlov. 3 months since she'd walked away from the broken woman crying over a cheating ex and stepped into a world where power was the only currency that mattered. She'd learned to navigate boardrooms like battlefields, to read men's lies in the flicker of their eyes, to understand that in Damon's world, weakness wasn't just a liability, it was a death sentence. And Kira George had no intention of dying. She'd changed in ways that would have terrified her old self. The woman who'd stumbled into that bar, desperate to forget Blake's betrayal, was gone, buried, replaced by someone who didn't flinch when billionaires tried to intimidate her, someone who made million-dollar decisions without breaking a sweat, someone who'd learned that survival meant becoming just as ruthless as the men who underestimated her. She no longer hesitated when Damon's enemies tested her, no longer second-guessed herself when the stakes were high. She'd become exactly what she promised him she'd be: his partner, his equal, his queen. Damon had forged her into this, taught her to spot threats before they materialized, showed her how to turn enemies into allies with the right words and the perfect amount of pressure. He'd given her a kingdom and taught her how to rule it. But more than that, he'd made her believe she deserved it, that she was powerful enough to stand beside him and never bow to anyone. For 3 months, they'd been unstoppable, building an empire, destroying their enemies, falling deeper in love with every battle they won together. But tonight, everything was about to shatter. Because the past doesn't stay buried. It claws its way back when you least expect it, wearing a face you once loved and carrying wounds you thought had healed. Tonight, at the Grandview Hotel's glittering charity gala, Kira would discover that some men refuse to accept they've lost, that some ghosts demand to be reckoned with, and that the empire she'd built with Damon could be threatened by something as simple and devastating as an ex-boyfriend who couldn't let go. What was supposed to be a celebration would become the night her two worlds collided. And when Blake saw her on Damon's arm, wearing power like a crown, he'd realize exactly what he'd thrown away. But realizing it and accepting it were two very different things. Kira woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Damon's penthouse. Their penthouse now. She'd officially moved in 2 weeks ago, though most of her things had been there for over a month. It had happened gradually. A toothbrush, then clothes, then her laptop and design equipment, until one day, Damon had simply handed her a key and said, "Stop pretending you don't live here." She turned in bed, expecting to find him beside her, but the sheets were cold, empty. Kira sat up, pulling the silk sheet around her bare body, and listened. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. She smiled, slipping out of bed and padding across the cool marble floor. The bathroom was filled with steam, the glass shower door fogged over, but she could see his silhouette. Tall, broad-shouldered, every line of him carved with precision. Even after 3 months, the sight of him still made her pulse race. Kira opened the shower door and stepped inside. Damon turned, water cascading down his body, his dark hair slicked back. His eyes darkened with immediate desire. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep and want. "Good morning," Kira replied, moving into his arms. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her flush against him. "You're up early." "I woke up alone. I didn't like it." "I was trying to let you sleep." His lips brushed her temple. "You were up late working on the Meridian project." She tilted her head back, letting the hot water cascade over her face. I finished it. Sent the final designs to the client at 2 a.m. You work too hard. Says the man who was on a conference call with Tokyo at midnight. Damon chuckled, his hand sliding up her back. Fair point. For a moment, they just stood there, water streaming over them, bodies pressed together, the rest of the world fading away. This was Kira's favorite part of their mornings, these quiet moments before the chaos of the day began, before Damon became the ruthless billionaire and she became the woman who stood beside him. Here, in the steam and silence, they were just them. I have something to tell you, Damon said softly. Kira pulled back slightly, searching his face. That sounds ominous. It's not. At least, I hope it's not. He hesitated, which was unusual for him. Damon Blackwood never hesitated. There's a charity gala tonight. The Grandview Hotel. It's important. A lot of influential people will be there. People I need to maintain relationships with. Okay, Kira frowned. Why do you look like you're about to tell me someone died? Because I need you there with me, not just as my date, but as my partner. These people need to see that you're not just someone I'm seeing. You're part of my world now, permanently. The weight of his words settled over her. 3 months ago, the idea would have terrified her. Standing in a room full of billionaires and power brokers, being scrutinized and judged. But now, I'll be there, Kira said simply. Whatever you need. Relief flooded his expression. Thank you. But I'm going to need a dress, something that says, I belong here, and if you question that, I'll destroy you. Damon's laugh was low and appreciative. I'll have my stylist send options to your office. Our office, Kira corrected. Remember? You gave me that corner space last month. How could I forget? His hand slid lower, gripping her hips. You've been driving me insane, sitting across the hall looking like sin in those pencil skirts. Heat pooled in her stomach. Is that so? His mouth found her neck, teeth grazing her pulse point. Do you have any idea how many meetings I've cut short just to watch you work? Damon. Her breath hitched as his hands explored, claiming. Or how many times I've locked my office door and thought about bending you over my desk. We're going to be late, Kira managed, even as her body arched into his touch. Let them wait. His voice was dark, possessive. Right now, you're mine. Blackwood Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of the Apex Tower in downtown Chicago. Damon's office was on the 50th floor. Corner suite. Panoramic views of the city. Kira's office was directly across the hall, smaller, but no less impressive. She'd been hesitant when he first offered it to her. I don't work for you, she'd protested. No, Damon had agreed. You work with me. There's a difference. And there was. Kira still maintained her freelance graphic design business, still took on clients, still built her own career. But now, she also consulted on Blackwood Enterprises' branding and marketing strategies, sat in on meetings, offered insights that Damon valued. She'd found her place in his world without losing herself in the process. Kira was reviewing mock-ups for a new campaign when her office door opened. She looked up, expecting Damon. Instead, she found Marcus Chen, Damon's head of security. Tall, stoic, with eyes that missed nothing. Ms. George, he said with a slight nod. Marcus, Kira set down her tablet. Is everything okay? Mr. Blackwood asked me to brief you on tonight's security protocols. Kira's stomach tightened. Security protocols? Marcus stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The gala tonight will have approximately 300 guests, high-profile individuals, politicians, CEOs, foreign dignitaries, which means it's also a potential security risk. You think something's going to happen? I think it's my job to prepare for every possibility. He pulled out a tablet showing her a detailed floor plan of the Grand View Hotel. You'll enter through the main entrance with Mr. Blackwood. My team will be positioned here, here, and here. He pointed to various locations. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or threatened, you signal me or any member of my team. How do I signal you? Touch your right ear. That's all. We'll be watching. Kira studied the floor plan, her mind racing. Has there been a specific threat? Marcus hesitated. Victor Kozlov has been quiet lately. Too quiet. Mr. Blackwood wants to ensure you're protected. I can take care of myself, Marcus. I know you can, Ms. George. But humor us anyway. Despite the tension, Kira smiled. Fair enough. Marcus nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, you're good for him. I've worked for Mr. Blackwood for 8 years. I've never seen him like this. Happy. Settled. Thank you, Marcus. He left, and Kira sat back in her chair, staring at the floor plan. Victor Kozlov. The name still sent a chill down her spine. Over the past 3 months, Damon had been systematically dismantling Kozlov's operations, buying out his suppliers, poaching his best employees, turning his allies against him. It was a slow, methodical destruction, and Kozlov had been surprisingly quiet about it, which, as Marcus said, was concerning. Kira's phone buzzed, a text from Damon. Lunch? My office. I'll order from that Italian place you love. She smiled, tension easing. Give me 10 minutes. Damon's office was exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire CEO. Massive desk, leather furniture, original artwork on the walls. But Kira had learned to see past the opulence to the man beneath. The way he kept a photo of them on his desk, half hidden behind his monitor. The way his bookshelves held not just business texts, but novels, poetry, philosophy. The way he'd rearranged his entire schedule around her needs without ever making her feel like a burden. She found him standing at the window, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and controlled. I don't care what he's offering. The answer is no. Make that clear. He ended the call and turned, his expression softening the moment he saw her. Trouble? Kira asked. Nothing I can't handle. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. How's your day? Productive. Marcus briefed me on tonight. Damon's jaw tightened. I'm sorry. I know it's excessive. It's smart, she cupped his face. And I appreciate that you're taking my safety seriously. Always. He kissed her softly. You're the most important thing in my world, Kira. I won't take chances with you. They ate lunch together, talking about everything and nothing. Work, plans for the weekend, a documentary Kira wanted to watch. Normal things. Things that made her forget for a little while that their lives were anything but normal. I have something for you, Damon said as they finished eating. He pulled a garment bag from behind his desk. Kira raised an eyebrow. I thought your stylist was sending options to my office. She did, but I saw this and knew it was perfect. He unzipped the bag, revealing a gown that made Kira's breath catch. Crimson silk, elegant and daring, the kind of dress that demanded attention. Damon, it's beautiful. Try it on. Now? His smile was wicked. Now. Kira took the dress into his private bathroom, her heart racing. The silk felt like water against her skin as she slipped it on. It fit perfectly, hugging every curve, the deep V neckline both sophisticated and seductive. She stepped out and Damon's reaction was immediate. His eyes darkened, his jaw clenched. Kira. Is it okay? Okay. He crossed to her in 3 strides, his hand settling on her waist. You're going to stop every conversation in that room tonight. That's the plan, isn't it? Make a statement? The statement is that you're mine. His lips brushed her ear, and anyone who looks at you will know it. Heat flooded through her. Possessive much? When it comes to you, always. He kissed her, deep and claiming, and Kira melted into him. This was what she'd been missing with Blake, this intensity, this certainty, this feeling of being wanted so completely that nothing else mattered. We should stop, Kira murmured against his lips. You have a 2:00 meeting. Cancel it. Damon. I'm serious. His hand slid up her back, finding the zipper of the dress. Right now, the only thing I care about is you, in this dress, in my office. Your assistant is right outside. She knows not to disturb me when the door's locked. You're impossible. And you love it. She did. God help her, she did. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. Kira returned to her office, finished the last of her work, and tried not to think about tonight. But the anxiety crept in anyway. She'd been to events with Damon before, dinners, small gatherings, business functions, but this was different. This was the first time she'd be presented to his world as more than just his girlfriend. This was her debut as his partner, and the pressure of that was suffocating. At 5 p.m., Kira left the office and returned to the penthouse. A team was already waiting. Hair, makeup, nails. Damon had thought of everything. Mr. Blackwood wants you to feel like a queen tonight, the stylist said with a warm smile. So that's exactly what we're going to do. For the next 2 hours, Kira was pampered and polished. Her dark hair was styled in soft waves that cascaded over one shoulder. Her makeup was dramatic but elegant. Smoky eyes, deep red lips that matched the dress. Her nails were painted a glossy crimson. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked powerful, confident, dangerous. She looked like she belonged in Damon's world. The bedroom door opened, and Damon stepped in. He froze, his eyes widening. Kira. She turned, her heart pounding. Too much? No. He crossed to her, his movements almost reverent. You're perfect. Absolutely perfect. He was devastating in his tuxedo. All sharp lines and controlled power. They looked like they belonged together. Are you ready? Damon asked softly. Kira took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. Then let's show them who you are. The Grandview Hotel was a monument to old money and new power. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, gold accents everywhere. The kind of place that whispered exclusivity. Damon's car pulled up to the entrance, and immediately cameras flashed. Press, paparazzi, society bloggers, all waiting to see who arrived and with whom. Ignore them, Damon murmured, his hand warm on hers. Just stay with me. The door opened and Damon stepped out first, then offered his hand to Kira. She took it, stepping into the blinding flash of cameras with her head held high. Questions were shouted from every direction. "Mr. Blackwood, who's your date? Is this the woman you've been seeing? What's your name, miss?" Damon's arm slid around her waist, protective and possessive. "This is Kira George," he said clearly, his voice carrying. "And yes, she's with me." The simple statement sent a ripple through the crowd. Damon Blackwood didn't bring dates to public events. He didn't make statements about his personal life. Until now. They moved through the entrance, leaving the chaos behind. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Hundreds of guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne flowing, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. This was power. This was wealth. And Kira was walking into it on Damon's arm. "Breathe," Damon whispered. "I am breathing. You're holding your breath." She exhaled slowly. "Better? Better." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You've got this." They moved through the crowd, Damon introducing her to person after person. CEOs, politicians, philanthropists, each one assessed her with varying degrees of curiosity and judgment. But Kira held her ground. She smiled, made small talk, remembered names and faces. She played the part perfectly. "You're a natural," Damon murmured during a brief moment alone. "I'm terrified." "You don't look it." "Good, that's the point." He chuckled, pulling her closer. "Have I told you how incredible you are?" "Not in the last hour." "Then I'm slipping." His lips brushed her ear. "You're incredible, Kira George, and I'm the luckiest man in this room." But then, the air shifted, conversations faltered, and Kira felt Damon's entire body go rigid beside her. She followed his gaze across the ballroom, and her heart stopped. Blake, her ex-boyfriend, the man who'd shattered her, the reason she'd walked into that bar 3 months ago and met Damon. He stood near the entrance, looking polished and confident in a tailored tuxedo, and beside him, Jessica, her former best friend, the woman who'd betrayed her in the worst possible way. They were holding hands. "Kira," Damon's voice was low, controlled. "We can leave, right now. Say the word." For a moment she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All the pain she'd buried came rushing back. The image of them together, the betrayal, the humiliation. But then, she felt Damon's hand tighten on her waist, felt his solid presence beside her, and she remembered. She wasn't that broken woman anymore. She'd survived. She'd grown. She'd become someone stronger. "No," Kira said, her voice steady. "I'm not running." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She turned to face him, her eyes fierce. "I want him to see me. I want him to see what he lost." Pride flickered in Damon's expression. "That's my girl." Blake's eyes found hers across the room. For a moment, time seemed to stop. She saw the shock register on his face, the recognition, the longing. He started walking toward them. Jessica trailed behind, her expression tight with barely concealed anger. Damon's hand tightened on Kira's waist, protective and possessive. "Say the word," he murmured, "and I'll have security remove him." "Let him come," Kira said softly. "I want him to see what he lost." Blake stopped a few feet away, his eyes moving between Kira and Damon with barely concealed shock. "Kira," he said, his voice uncertain. I didn't know you'd be here." "Why would you?" Her tone was ice. "We don't exactly run in the same circles anymore." His gaze dropped to Damon's hand on her waist, then back to her face. "You look different." "I am different." Jessica stepped forward, her smile brittle. "Kira, it's been a while." "Not long enough." The words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Jessica's smile faltered. Blake shifted uncomfortably. "I wanted to talk to you, to apologize. What happened between us is in the past," Kira interrupted. "Where it belongs." "Kira, please. I made a mistake. Jessica and I, it's not what you think." "Really?" Kira's laugh was cold. "Because what I think is that you cheated on me with my best friend in my apartment, on my couch. So unless there's some other interpretation I'm missing..." Blake flinched. Damon's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "I think you should walk away now." Blake's jaw tightened. "And who are you?" "Damon Blackwood." He extended his hand, not in greeting but in dominance. "Kira's fiancé." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Kira's head snapped toward Damon, her eyes wide. "Fiancé?" They hadn't discussed this, hadn't even talked about marriage. But Damon's expression was calm, certain, as if he'd just stated an undeniable fact. Blake's face went pale. "Fiancé?" "That's right." Damon's smile was sharp, predatory. "So whatever apology you came here to deliver, save it. She's moved on, and she's never looking back." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "How convenient. 3 months ago you were crying over Blake. Now you're engaged to a billionaire? That was fast." "Careful." Damon's voice dropped to a dangerous level. "You're speaking to my future wife." "It's okay," Kira said softly, placing a hand on Damon's chest. She turned to Jessica, her expression cold. "You're right. It was fast. But unlike you, I don't waste time on people who don't value me. Damon saw what Blake couldn't, that I'm worth fighting for." Blake's eyes found Kira's again, searching for something. Doubt? Hesitation? He wouldn't find it. "Congratulations," Blake said finally, his voice hollow. He turned and walked away, Jessica trailing behind him with a look of barely concealed fury. The moment they were gone, Kira turned to Damon, her heart racing. "Fiancé?" she hissed, keeping her voice low. "You couldn't have warned me?" Damon's expression softened, his hand cupping her face. "I'm sorry. I saw him looking at you like he still had a claim, and I couldn't let him think for 1 second that you were anything but mine." "So you just decided to propose in the middle of a crowded ballroom?" "No." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I decided 3 weeks ago." Kira's breath caught. He opened the box, revealing a ring that was breathtaking. A flawless diamond surrounded by smaller stones, elegant and timeless. The kind of ring that spoke of forever. "I was waiting for the right moment," Damon said softly. "But seeing him tonight, seeing the way he looked at you, I realized there's no perfect moment. There's only now. And I don't want to waste another second not being your husband. Tears pricked her eyes. Damon. Marry me, Kira. His voice was raw, vulnerable. Not because of him. Not because of anyone else. Marry me because you love me. Because you want to build a life with me. Because you can't imagine a future without me in it. Around them, people were starting to notice. Conversations were stopping. Eyes were turning toward them. But Kira didn't care. All she could see was Damon, the man who'd saved her, the man who'd shown her what real love looked like. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Damon's smile was brilliant, relieved, triumphant. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her. Deep, possessive, claiming. Applause erupted around them, but Kira barely heard it. All she felt was Damon. All she knew was that she'd just made the best decision of her life. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of congratulations and champagne. People Kira had never met embraced her like old friends, their smiles bright and their eyes calculating. They wanted to know her, wanted to be close to Damon's chosen one, wanted to secure their place in his favor through her. She played the part perfectly, smiling and gracious, her hand resting in Damon's as if it had always belonged there. The ring caught the light every time she moved, the diamond throwing prisms across the walls, a constant reminder of what had just happened. She was engaged to Damon Blackwood, the man who'd saved her from drowning in her own heartbreak and taught her how to breathe again. But beneath the celebration, tension simmered like a storm waiting to break. Kira could feel Blake's eyes on her from across the room, a weight she couldn't shake no matter how many people surrounded her. She tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the conversations and the laughter and the way Damon's thumb traced circles on her palm. But Blake's presence was a shadow she couldn't escape. Every time she glanced up, he was there, watching. His expression unreadable, but his eyes burning with something that made her skin crawl. Jessica stood beside him, her smile brittle and her champagne glass gripped too tight. But Blake barely seemed to notice her. His attention was fixed entirely on Kira, and she didn't like it. He's staring, Kira murmured to Damon during a quiet moment between conversations. They stood near the edge of the ballroom, champagne flutes in hand, the perfect picture of wealth and power. But Kira felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't felt in months. I know, Damon said, his jaw tight. His eyes flicked across the room to where Blake stood, then back to her. Marcus is keeping an eye on him. Do you think he'll try something? I think he's realizing what he lost, and that's eating him alive. Damon's hand tightened on hers, possessive and protective. But if he so much as breathes in your direction the wrong way, he'll regret it. Kira wanted to believe that was enough, that Blake would accept defeat and walk away. But she knew him, knew the way his mind worked, the way he fixated on things he couldn't have. She'd seen it before, in the way he'd pursued her when they first met, relentless and charming until she'd said yes. Back then, she'd thought it was romantic. Now, she recognized it for what it was. Obsession. And obsession didn't just disappear because someone else put a ring on her finger. The minutes dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Kira smiled and nodded and made small talk with people whose names she'd forget by morning. But all the while she felt Blake's gaze like a brand on her skin. She caught him moving closer once, weaving through the crowd with purpose, and her heart seized. But Marcus appeared out of nowhere, a wall of muscle and silent threat, and Blake stopped, turned away. retreated back to Jessica's side. But the damage was done. Kira's nerves were frayed, her composure cracking at the edges. At 10 p.m., Damon leaned down and whispered in her ear, his breath warm against her skin. "Let's get out of here." "We can't just leave," Kira protested, though her voice lacked conviction. "You said this was important." "You're more important." His hand slid to the small of her back, firm and grounding. "And I want to take my fiancé home and show her exactly how much I love her." Heat pooled in Kira's stomach, chasing away the anxiety that had been building all night. When he looked at her like that, with eyes dark and hungry and full of promise, the rest of the world ceased to exist. "When you put it that way," she murmured, a smile tugging at her lips. They made their excuses, Damon's hand never leaving her back as they navigated through the crowd. People tried to stop them, to pull them into one more conversation, one more photo, but Damon was relentless. He moved with purpose, cutting through the ballroom like a man on a mission. Marcus and his team flanked them, a silent protective barrier that parted the crowd without a word. Kira caught one last glimpse of Blake as they reached the side entrance. He was staring after them, his expression twisted with something she couldn't name. Anger? Longing? Desperation? She didn't know, didn't want to know. She turned away and let Damon lead her into the night. The car was waiting, sleek and black, the engine purring like a predator. Damon ushered her inside, his hand lingering on her lower back, then slid in beside her. The door closed with a soft click, sealing them in darkness and leather and the faint scent of his cologne. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The tension that had been building all night hung between them, thick and electric. Then Damon reached for her, and the world exploded. He pulled her into his lap, his mouth finding hers with desperate hunger. The kiss was fierce, consuming, as if he was trying to erase every second Blake had spent looking at her. "Mine," he growled against her lips, his hands gripping her hips hard enough to bruise. "You're mine, Kira. Say it." "I'm yours," she gasped, her fingers tangling in his hair. "Only yours." His hands were everywhere, sliding up her thighs, tracing the curve of her waist, claiming every inch of her like he was afraid she'd disappear. "That ring on your finger means you're never leaving me." "I don't want to leave you," Kira breathed, arching into his touch. "Good." His teeth grazed her neck, sending shivers down her spine. "Because I'd burn the world down before I let you go." The drive back to the penthouse felt like an eternity. Every touch was fire. Every kiss was a promise. Damon's hands roamed her body with a possessiveness that should have scared her, but only made her want him more. She could feel the tension coiled in his muscles, the barely restrained control that threatened to snap at any moment. He kissed her like a man starving, like she was the only thing keeping him alive. And maybe she was. Maybe they were both drowning, and this desperate need for each other, was the only thing keeping them afloat. By the time they reached the building, Kira was trembling with need. Her dress was askew, her lipstick smudged, her carefully styled hair falling loose around her shoulders. She looked thoroughly ravaged, and she didn't care. All she cared about was getting inside, getting Damon alone, and finishing what they'd started in the back of that car. The elevator ride was torture. Damon pressed her against the mirrored wall, his body pinning hers, his mouth hot and demanding on her neck. "I love you," he murmured against her skin, his voice rough and raw. "God, Kira, I love you so much it terrifies me." "Then show me," she whispered, her nails digging into his shoulders. "Show me how much." The elevator doors opened and Damon swept her into his arms, carrying her across the threshold of their penthouse like she weighed nothing. The door slammed shut behind them, and the city lights stretched out beyond the windows, a glittering backdrop to the storm about to break. Damon set her down gently, his hands framing her face, his eyes searching hers. "Are you okay?" he asked. "After tonight, after seeing him." "I'm perfect," Kira said, and she meant it. "Because I'm with you." That was all the permission he needed. Damon kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense, and Kira melted into him. Tonight had been a test, a reminder that the past never truly stayed buried. But standing here in Damon's arms, his ring on her finger, and his love wrapped around her like armor, Kira knew one thing with absolute certainty. Blake could watch all he wanted. He could regret and obsess and scheme, but he'd already lost. Because she belonged to Damon Blackwood now. And nothing, not even the ghosts of her past, could change that. The penthouse was dark when they entered, the city lights casting shadows across the floor. Damon barely closed the door before his hands were on her, pulling her against him with a desperation that stole her breath. "I need you," he murmured against her lips, "right now." "Then take me," Kira breathed. His kiss was fierce, consuming, as if he was trying to erase every memory of Blake, every doubt, every fear. He backed her against the wall, his hands sliding up her thighs, pushing the crimson fabric of her dress higher. "You're mine. Say it again." "I'm yours," Kira gasped as his fingers found her, teasing, claiming. "Only yours. Always yours." Good. His mouth moved to her neck, teeth grazing her skin. "Because I'm never letting you go." He lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to the bedroom. The dress was gone in seconds, discarded on the floor along with his tuxedo jacket. His shirt followed, then his pants, until there was nothing between them. No barriers, no walls, just skin against skin, heat against heat. Damon laid her on the bed, his body covering hers, his weight a delicious pressure. "I love you," he whispered against her collarbone. "God, Kira, I love you so much." "Show me," she demanded, her nails raking down his back. "Show me how much." And he did. Slowly at first, torturously slow. His hands explored every inch of her, memorizing, worshipping. His mouth followed, leaving trails of fire across her skin. He took his time, building the tension until she was trembling beneath him, begging for more. "Damon, please." "Say my name," he commanded. "I want to hear you say it." "Damon," she moaned. "Damon, please." He gave her everything, every ounce of passion, every bit of control he'd been holding back. He moved inside her with a rhythm that was both tender and fierce, claiming her in ways that went beyond physical. This was more than sex. This was a promise, a vow, a binding of souls. "You're mine," he whispered against her ear. "My wife, my partner, my everything." "Yes," Kira gasped, her body arching into his. "Yes, Damon, yes." And when she shattered in his arms, his name was a prayer on her lips, a benediction, a surrender. He followed moments later, burying his face in her neck, his body shuddering with release. They lay tangled together, hearts racing, breath mingling. Perfect, complete. Later, as they lay in the darkness, Damon traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I meant what I said tonight," he murmured, "about you being mine, about never letting go." Kira turned to face him, her fingers brushing his jaw. "I know. And I meant what I said too. I'm yours, Damon. Completely." "Even after seeing him tonight?" "Especially after seeing him tonight." She smiled. "Because I realized something. Blake never looked at me the way you do. He never made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He never fought for me." "I'll always fight for you," Damon promised, "no matter what." "I know." She kissed him softly. "That's why I said yes." Damon pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her like a shield. "Get some sleep," he whispered. "Tomorrow, we start planning our future." Kira smiled, closing her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt completely at peace. But as she drifted off to sleep, she didn't see the shadow that passed by the window, didn't hear the soft click of a camera, didn't know that across the city, Blake sat in his apartment, staring at a photo of her. The image glowed on his phone screen. Kira in Damon's arms, her face radiant with happiness, the ring catching the light. Blake's jaw clenched, his fingers tightening around the phone until his knuckles turned white. Blake wasn't done fighting for her, and that was going to be a problem. Will Blake's obsession destroy everything Kira and Damon have built? What dangerous lengths will he go to win her back? And when Blake starts digging into Damon's past, what deadly secrets will he uncover? The war between love and obsession has only just begun. And in Damon's world, someone always pays the price. Subscribe now so you don't miss part 3. Because when Blake makes his move, Kira will have to choose between the life she's built and the man who refuses to let her go. Hit that like button if you're Team Damon. Comment below if you think Blake deserves a second chance, or if he's already gone too far. This story is far from over. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.